Hello and welcome to this exploring session, our first session looking at a new interlude of Vice, containing the history of Horestes with the cruel revengement of his father's death upon his unnatural mother, by John Pickering. This play dates from around 1567, so in the 1560s all sorts of strange and interesting things happen in that decade, and I'm looking forward to what may be coming out of this today. As printed, the printed edition suggests that the play can be divided for 6. In practice, it's a bit dodgy. Maybe that's just for the printed edition to try and lure in small companies who are interested in such things. It just about might work. We're not going with that original doubling scheme per se. It will dance around over the next couple of days, depending on who's in the room. That said, our room is not as large as on other days. You know, it's not a Lily day. Today, it's much more mid-Tudor interlude kind of day, and so reading the various parts of Orestes reading Orestes himself is.
Hello, I'm Lynn. I'm a college writing teacher. This is my faithful assistant, Scooter, and we live in the northwestern United States.
And reading Hodge, Nature, and Some Soldiers is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian in Yorkshire.
Reading Counsel, Haltersick, and a Messenger is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm here.
Reading Idumeus today is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm an author based in Romford.
Reading Rusticus, Hempstring, and Clytemnestra today is...
I am Lois, a retired academic living in London.
And reading The Vice and Egistus today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott. I live in Suffolk, and today I've got to restrict myself to a single vice.
Yes, the text that we're working from has been lightly modernised by Alan, who's helped prepare the script for this session. Apart from the, shall we call the rustic characters who have been left in the original spelling. I think we should all just give a mini round of applause in advance for anyone attempting to do the rustic characters, because there may be some interesting constructions coming up, but it's always interesting to see how these come out in play. So without further ado, we're going to leap straight into the text. It doesn't come with scene intervals in the original printing. We have a semi-artificial division of scenes for in our internal use. So opening the play now for what we're calling scene 1 is The Vice.
Ah, Sarah, nay soft. What? Let me see. Good morrow to you, sir. How do you fare? Saint Amen, I think it will be, the next day in the morning before I come there. Well, forward I will, for to prepare some weapons and armours the caitiffs to quell. I'll teach the Herchets again to rebel. Rebel? Yea, sir, how say you there too? What? You had not best their parts to take? Hold thee content, fool, and do as I do, or else me chance your pate for to ache. Yea, and that's more, for fear thou shalt quake, for Horestes, when in good sooth he shall arrive in this land, revenged to be. Well, forward I will, things purvey, in good sooth for the wars, as I shall think good. Farewell, good man Dottrell, and mark what I say, or else it may chance you seek a new hood. You would eat no more cake bread, I think then by the rood. If that same pool from your solus were hent, you would think you were ill, if so you were shent.
And here entereth Rusticus and Hodge.
She'll never, neighbour Hodge, have a glad heart, till Egistus the king hath for his desert received due punishment. For this well I know, Horestes to Crete with Idumeus did go when his father was slain by his mother most ill. and therefore I think that come hither he will, and revenge the injury of his mother most dire, wasting our land with sword and with fire.
Jesu, neighbour, with fire and sword say you so? By guess, neighbour, just save one, I trow. For ich have small good by his for to lose, and therefore ich care not however it goes. But she'll be not slain, she'll love nothing worse, she'll never be burnt for the money in my purse. Ich have small ruddocks, and soldiers I know will rob the rich churls, and let the poor knaves go.
Ah, sir, now stay and pause there a while. Be not too hasty, but take all the day. By God, I'm weary with coming this mile, and having no money my horse hire to pay. Who? How? I rode on my feet all the way. Jesu, what ground since yesterday at noon have I got through with this pair of shoon?
Neighbour Hodge, begog hatch none, I hear, that this little horchet the deviance doth bear. Come, let us go, and of him in good sooth we will conquer out the very truth.
Urchet, godzoons, get with a wanion. Are you so lusty in faith, good man clown? Odds heart and nails, this is a frannion. I'll teach you to flout me. I hold you a pound. Oh, that it were not in faith for my gownd. It will I knock 'em yet, for all that.
And there's a fight.
Hold, good master, you mar my new hat.
Mar his hat, quoth he. There was all his thought. Toot, toot, for all the blows he set not a pin. That garment is dear that with blows is bought. Well, sires, to entreat me, sith you begin, I am contented, my blade now shall in. But tell me, sires, tell me now, wherefore of me the cause on this sort your talking should be.
By guess and a shill, master, for all my great pain of this matter to you to tell thee very plain. My neighbour Hodge and I, in good sooth, mot here in the velds, I tell you the truth. Now, as we were talking, mark what I say, you came in straight, and of us crossed the way. Which thing, for zartin, when I did espy, this fancy flounched in my head by and by, and to Hodge I said that by guess I did fear that your mastership, good master, the deviance doth bear, and because you were little and of stature but small, your person a portrait, in faith I did call. But by guess be contented, for she'll never more offend you again, but I'm sorry therefore.
If they were not twain, I cared not a point. But two is too many, the proverb doth tell. Else by his wounds I would job at this joint, and teach them against me again to rebel. Oh, that I were able the knaves for to quell, then would I triumph passing all measure.
Gentlemen, at your own pleasure. In faith we be, and therefore we pray. What they name is to us for to say.
My name would ye know? Marry you shall. Hark, friend, first to thee why will it declare? Master Patience, many one doth me call. But come hither, neighbour Hodge, thou must have a share. I guess unto thee I will not spare the same for to show. Wherefore, my friend, my name is Patience, if thou it perpend.
Pass shame. God's gee neighbour, pass shame. By God's dee neighbour, that's a tricksome name.
Tell a mare a tale, and she'll gird out a fart. See how thee as my words doth mistake. Would it not anger a saint at the heart to see what a scoff of my name he doth make? Oh, owns of me as still as a stake. He standeth naught, caring what of him may betide. By his wounds I would have an arm or a side. Sword, let me see, it's best to be still. Good sleeping in a hold skin, old folks do say. Notwithstanding you wish, I'll have my own will. Hey, I will be revenged by zoons I may. Sirrah, you good man Rusticus, mark what I say. Hark in thine ear, man. This did I see, a hog of thine, wearied to be.
Oh, God's go, Master Patience. I pray you may tell what horse and Charles' dog my hog so did quell. Ich swear by Gis and Holy Saint Blythe, shall but swing him and it be alive. By God's day, chap angry and not well content, should to have wear hair should make him repent. Ich had rather given 4 strike of corn than to have my hog on this wise forlorn. But if I knew whose dog it should be, revenged well enough, I warrant ye.
By God, Rusticus, I may say in no game. I know the person whose dog so did slay thy hog. By fie, man, it was very shame for thy neighbour Hodge to let it by this day. Well, I will go to him and see if I may by any means procure him to make the amends. I'll do the best I can to make you both friends.
It shall be no friends, should rather be hanged till ye have that old carl well and thriftily banged. And 'twere not your mastership did me withhold, to swing the orchard it should be bold.
Nay, nay, spare not for me. Go to it straight, if thereto ye agree.
Hodge, I hard say thou illy hast wrought, for my hog unto death with thy dog thou hast brought. Ich bid thee thy vote to me to amend, or chill swaddle thee each swear in my bat end.
Swaddle me? God's get you'll care not a point. Ich have a good bat thy bones to anoint. Thou old carl, I say thy hog hurted me, and therefore I will have amends now of thee. My rye and my oats, my beans and my peas, they have eaten up quite, but small for my ease, and therefore ich say, all thy hogs kept vast, or I will them weary as long as they last. By God's get, I can never come to my ground, but that same swine in my peas ich have found.
Toot, toot, Rusticus, these words be but wind. To him, man, to him, and swaddle him well. Ye never leave him, as long as thou can find him what, but teach him again to rebel. What needest thou to care, though his words be so fell? Toot, toot, thou's unwise, and follow my mind, and I warrant thee, in end, some ease thou shalt find.
God's gee, horse and Hodge, pay me for my swine, or else learn to keep that coxcomb of thine.
And up with thy staff, and be ready to smite, but Hodge smite first.
God's deed do thee worst, I care not a point. She'll pay none, she'll job at a joint.
Nay, stand I still, somewhat I will lend. Take this for a ward, now away I must wend.
And let the vice thwack them both and run out.
Oh, God's get, chum's winged so sore, ich think shall never live 1 hour more.
Oh, Godski, I think my bones will insunder. If I get home by guess it's a wonder. Farewell, Rusticus, for by guess ich all. When I meet thee again, beswing thee the vor all.
Nay, let be friends, and chill in good part of brown ale at my house give thee a whole wart. What, Hodge? Shake hands, man. Be merry and laugh. By God's gate, ich had not the best end of the staff.
I'm content, neighbour Rusticus. Shall be e'en so. Come to thy house, I pray thee, let us go.
And they go out, and that's effectively the end of the first scene, the first unit of action. I don't know, is that the first time we've had in a stage direction the word thwack? It's such a wonderful word. It's wasted in a stage direction. We have got, for those who've been with us for morality plays, Tudor interludes, and the sort, we've got lots of little things that we've had before. We've obviously got the Vice as a character. The Vice at one point uses a false name. Anyone playing interlude bingo, that's, you can put that down on your chart. We've got someone for comic effect slightly mishearing something, mishearing a name. So we've got the that gag. There's a fight randomly happens for no particularly readily apparent reason. So we've got that ticked off there. Interesting question about the height of the Vice. The Vice is indicated to be quite small. So is this indicating that at least one member of the company is a boy, or are they all boys? In terms of who might have been playing this originally, lots of questions about that, which we won't be going into at this session. So yeah, it's throwing up lots of conventional things that we might expect if we were in the 1560s and watching something vaguely courtly or interlude-y. But it's doing the play A History of Horestes. We've got this plot that's happening that gets mentioned a lot at the beginning. Everyone comes on and does exposition of stuff happening off stage, and which they then sort of divert from to do their business, their shtick. So yeah, sorry, I just did a lot of talking at you there. I should stop doing that because it stops everyone else saying things. So thoughts in the room about this? How are we finding it? I mean, slightly strange accents and verbiage aside. Alan first.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's prototype pantomime, isn't it? The the Vice and the two comic brokers men. And he's obviously stirring up trouble wherever he can get away with it. There's one word that came up several times which I hadn't been able to translate or modernize, which was horchet or herchet.
Yes.
Do you have a footnote?
I do. Oddly enough, because that leapt out at me as well. I mean, broadly speaking, it's sort of meaning rascals. It's supposed to derive from something to do with hedgehogs. According to the footnote I read. It's not directly, I think, from that, but broadly speaking, someone who's a bit of the rascally type people. Lois may have a better thought on that.
Well, I'm wondering if it's related to urchin, because I think urchin can also be a kind of animal, and this would be an urchin. I mean, if this is a small boy. I mean,
urchin is hedgehog.
Urchin is hedgehog, yeah, so that would fit, yeah.
My footnotes do not lie. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I saw a hand a moment ago.
I wanted to say that I got so lost in the language of this play. I know usually we have the yokel accent and the dialects, those northern maybe dialects in one character for some of the lines, but this one is like heavy duty. I was really, really lost.
Yeah, it is a question for the performer to make it clear, yet keeping the dialect sense there. But you're right. When there's more than one character, it does make it much harder to tune into. Helen.
Yeah, I mean, here you had. I don't know how Lois was doing, but for me, there were two characters, both with accents from subtly different parts of the country, I felt. And I was speaking well, and she was speaking well, but whether either of us understood either what we were saying or what we were hearing is another matter altogether.
I got the general idea. I mean, I think the point is partly that the Vice is presumably exactly the opposite of what he says his name is, that he's certainly not patience, and he's trying to encourage, anger and hostility in everybody he meets. And I think he's told me that your dog attacked my hog, and then I complain about this. You say that my hog has been destroying your crops. and then we have a fight, which, you know, is a great pleasure to him. And then
continue talking in my absence. I will return.
Oh, right. And then he hits both of us and goes out, hoping, I guess, that we will continue fighting. But instead, for some reason, I start seeing sense, and I suggest we make it up and go and have a drink at my place, and then we do.
I got the impression that Rusticus was, in fact, a lot more intelligent than Hodge.
Hodge is older, too, isn't he? He's referred to as an old Carl, I think.
Ah, right. Because you're the one with all the current affairs.
Yeah.
All the stuff about what the kings are up to and wars and things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really surprising that anybody like me would be that well informed, actually. I mean, given the prohibition on news in the period.
Well, yes. I think they all knew a lot. It just wasn't always very accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody was stuffed with the latest events, but, you know, only about 10% of them were correct.
Yeah, well, that's true. But we do seem to have the plot of the Orstein trilogy pretty well in our heads.
Yes, but I mean, practically anything can happen.
Yeah.
So weird. I wasn't aware there was such a thing as a kind of morality play Greek tragedy mashup. Okay. Okay. I mean, even educated people at this point, you had to be highly educated to speak Greek or to read Greek. Lots of people read Latin, but being familiar with Greek tragedy, that's just surprising to me.
Yeah, well, they may have known a Latin retelling of it.
Yes, I mean, there were the most of the Trojan Wars can be found somewhere in the Aeneid.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I've read the Aeneid, but it's been a while. Is the Orestes Agamemnon Clytemnestra thing in the Aeneid at all?
No, it wouldn't be there because it didn't happen until Agamemnon got back from Troy, and it's a sort of parallel story to Aeneas's leaving Troy. But I think it's probably been dramatized by Seneca. I was trying to remember if he did a version of this. Does it turn up in? I mean, just about everything turns up in Ovid.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere in Latin. You know, if they didn't read it in Greek.
I must admit, I think that sequence anyway is there to get the audience to shut up and engage. Oh, we're going to have fisticuffs. We're going to have, you know, comedy yokels, particularly if it's done for a London audience. Oh, you know, here's all the country bumpkins let's take the mick out of. You know, which is a good gag that's worked for centuries.
Just a note on sources. Some of it apparently come from Lydgate as a source. So that's the closest I can get at this this brief, slightly breathless moment from me. Apologies for nipping out there. Anything interesting happened in my absence?
We dissected the transmission of classical literature in the early modern era.
Excellent.
Well, I didn't. The two theatre historians did.
Yes, we've been having all sorts of interesting bits of print culture coming into existence around about now, throwing all sorts of stuff into the works that this is bouncing off, presumably on some level.
Another footnote question, Robert. Franians is a word that comes up quite frequently in the things of this period, and we don't seem to have ever established a firm concept of what they are.
Well, I've got a footnote on that, but if anyone else has something else they want to throw in first, I will.
I mean, from the context, it's friends, mates.
Yeah. Something sort of like drinking companions, really. I mean, hail fellow, well met type.
Yes, well, the footnote in the edition I have here suggests it's a gay, reckless person. It's,
Yeah.
possibly down,
This must be a fairly elderly footnote, I take it.
or a fairly elderly editor. One of the two, or possibly both. Yes. Yeah, I think that sense of someone, that sense of a companion in that sort of sense fits.
I mean, you could almost see Hodge and Rusticus being played by the two Ronnies in their two old boys sitting on the allotment guys, couldn't you?
I got the impression they were older than that, younger than that, rather. I mean, they had a bit more life to them in that sense. Eric?
Sorry, I had some trouble unmuting there. Yeah, according to the Century Dictionary, a Franian is an idle, dissolute fellow, a paramour or boon companion, a gay or dissolute person of either sex. So, yeah.
A ne'er-do-well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, well, I think the guys at the beginning of the Old Wives' Tale, isn't he called Frolic Franian or something like that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Which we've done 2 sessions on for these exploring sessions, available on the YouTube channel now.
Right.
Okay, we should move forward, I think, to get a bit more into the meat of the plot, perhaps, if we'll see what happens there. So we've had the Vice chatting to these 2 chaps, Rusticus and Hodge, but now we have the entrance of Horestes, or Horestes, depending on how you want to go with that. It's probably just pronounced Orestes. The H is probably silent, but who knows? Let's see if the text gives us any clues. Enter Orestes.
To call to mind the crabbed rage of mother's ill attempt provokes me now, all pity from me to be exempt. Yet lo, Dame Nature tells me that I must, with willing mind, forgive the fault, to pity somewhat to be inclined. But lo, behold, the adulterous dame on whoredom murder will hath heaped up, not contented, her spousal bed to fill with foreign love, but sought also my fatal thread to share. Or erst, before my father's fill, in sunder she did pair. O paternal love, why dost thou so pity me request, sith thou to me wast quite denied, my mother being pressed? When tender years this corpse of mine did hold, alas for woe, when friend my mother should have been, then was she chief my foe. O gods, therefore, sith you be just, unto whose so power and will all thing in heaven and earth also obey and serve until, declare to me your gracious mind. Shall I be revenged of good King Agamemnon's death? Ye gods, declare to me. Or shall I let the adulterous dame still wallow in her sin? O gods of war, guide me aright when I shall war begin.
And enter the Vice to Orestes.
War, quoth he? Aye, war indeed, and try it by the sword. God save you, sir. The king gods to ye have sent this kind of word, that in the haste you armour take, your father's foes to slay, and I as guide with you shall go, to guide you on the way. By me, thy mind, their wrathful doom shall be performed indeed. Therefore, Orestes, mark me well, mid forward do proceed, for to revenge thy father's death. For this they all have meant, which thing for to demonstrate, lo, to thee they have me sent.
Are you, good sir, the messenger of gods, as you do say? Will they, in revenging this wrong, I make not long delay?
What need you doubt? I was in heaven when all the gods did agree that you of Agamemnon's death, forsooth, revenged should be. Toot, put off that childish love. Couldst thou, with a good will, contented be that one should so their father seem to kill? Why wailest thou, man? Leave off, I say. Pluck courage unto thee. This lamentation soon shall fade, if thou embracest me.
What is thy name, may I inquire? Sacred wight, I pray. Declare to me, and with this fear do not my heart dismay.
Among the gods celestial, I courage called am. You to assist, in very truth, from out of the heavens I came. And not without God Mars his leave, I durst here show my face, which thou shalt feel, if that their gift thou dost forthwith embrace.
And Sid, if is their gracious will, welcome thou art to me. O holy wight, for this their gift I thank them heartily. Methinks I feel all fear to fly, all sorrow, grief, and pain. Methinks I feel courage provokes my forward will again. For to revenge my father's death and infamy so great. Oh, how my heart doth boil indeed with fiery, parching heat. Courage, now welcome by the gods, I find thou art indeed a messenger of heavenly ghosts. Come, let us now proceed, and take in hand to bring to pass revenged for to be of those which have my father slain. But soft, now let me see.
And we're going to pause before we let you see the entrance of the people coming on stage. Stopping you mid dialogue. It's really interesting how different this is to the last scene. And also we've got these clues as to how it should be performed in what the Vice is saying about Horestes. So, Horestes, suddenly we've got some 14ers. Yay! Always nice to see. And the Vice is saying, stop wailing. So, there's something actually quite demonstrative about how this should be performed. And the Vice is sort of like the evil angel on the shoulder in this, isn't it? It's quite creepy. This and then second fake name from the Vice, I'm Courage this time, and Vice just comes on and says, yeah, go for it, go on, murder a member of your family, it'll be fine. So yeah, this is a very different tone and really interesting, and the just the way the Vice, we've seen what the Vice can do to rustics. This is what he can do to a person with power. I'm really interested by that. Lynn?
What's perplexing to me, though, is that the Vice usually encourages people to do the wrong thing. Yes. But the title of this printed copy strongly implies that killing Clytemnestra is the right thing. So I'm confused already.
Well, it's an interesting question where the player's going to pitch these actions. Where is it right? Is it good? These characters from a not particularly Christian universe. So is anything they do which they think right or wrong, and where are we pitching these things? It's a really interesting question. I mean, is it he's doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, or do you need to go to a dark place to do necessary things? Maybe I'm overthinking that. Other thoughts from the room? We haven't finished the scene, by the way. I just paused it mid-sentence.
The language has changed. I was like, wow, oh my gosh, it's such a contrast to the dialect of before, and it's a lot more understandable and readable, so I was quite happy.
It's not only that, the Vice has changed how he talks as well.
Yes.
It's like the Vice changes to suit the person he's talking to. Does the Vice really have his own voice? That's an interesting question. I quite like. He does get an opening speech, but I just wonder if. And the opening speech, which we didn't mention, actually, the Vice comes on in. He does audience participation as patter. So you're invited to like the Vice, or feel connected to the Vice on that sort of level, and then does all these things. It's interesting. Other thoughts, Lois?
Yeah, well, it seems to be raising already the sort of questions people always ask about revenge tragedy. What is the attitude to revenge? Even if the things that are being revenged are horrible, is revenge ever justified? And I think it's already kind of implied here that it's a problem.
Yeah. Okay, let's get deeper into the scene. So I halted Orestes mid-sentence. Soft, for here enters Idumeus and a counsel. So a non-real name person has entered as well. So another, like the Vice, it's more a description rather than a character name.
Idumeus, that worthy king, doth come into this place. What say you, courage? Shall I now declare to him my case?
Fall to it then, and slack no time. But time, once passed away, doth cause repentance, but too late to come, old folks do say. When stead is stolen, too late it is to shut the stable door. Take time, I say, while time doth give a leisure good therefore.
Whatever he be that sceptre bears or rules in state full high, is soonest down through fortune's eyes and brought to misery. As of late years, the worthy king Agamemnon by name, whose praise throughout the world is blown by golden trump of fame, his well-won fame in martial store doth reach unto the sky. Yet lo, through fortune's blind attempt, he low in earth doth lie. He that had passed the fate of war, where chance was equal set, through fortune's spite is caught, alack, within old Meros net. And he which sometime did delight in clothed coat of mail, is now constrained in Charon's boat over the brook to sail, that flows upon the fatal banks of Pluto's kingdom great, and that in shade of silent woods and valleys green do beat, where souls of kings and other wights appointed are to be, in quiet state, there also is this worthy real tree. Of sooth, I joy for to behold Horestes' active cheer, the which in father sometime was, in son doth now appear. But where is he, that all this day I never saw his face?
And Orestes kneels down.
At hand, king, thy servant is, which wishest to thy grace. All hail with happy fate, certain, with pleasures manifold. But yet, my liege, a suit I have, if I might be so bold to crave the same, my sovereign lord, whereby I might aspire unto the thing which very much, king, I do require.
What thing is that, if we suppose it lawful for to be, on prince's faith, without delay it shall be given thee?
Let him alone now, we may in good sooth. I was not so lusty my purpose to get. But now of my honesty I tell you of truth, in revenging the wrong his mind he hath set. It is not Idumeus that hath power to let Orestes from seeking his mother to kill. Don't let him alone, he'll have his own will.
Sith that your grace hath willed me, this my desire to show, O gracious king, the thing it is I let your grace to know. That long I have request to view my father's kingly place, and eke for to revenge the wrong done to my father's grace is my intent. Therefore, king, grant that, without delay, my heritage and honor eke achieve again I may.
Stay there a while, Horestes mine, till counsel do decree the thing that shall unto your state most honourable be. My counsellor, how do you think? Let us your counsel have. How think you by this thing, which Horestes doth now crave?
As I do think, my sovereign lord, it should be nothing ill, a prince for to revenge be on those which so did kill his father's grace. But rather shall it be a fear to those that to the like at any time their cruel minds dispose. And also, as I think, it shall be an honour to ye to adjuvate and help him with some men revenge to be. This do I think most fittest for your state, and his also. Do as you list, sith that your grace my mind herein doth know.
Sith counsel thinks it fit, indeed, revenged for to be, that you, Horestes, in good sooth, for to revenge I agree. And also to maintain your war, I grant you with goodwill 1,000 men of stomach bold, your enemies to kill. Take them forthwith and forward go. Let slip no time ye tide. For chance to leisure be to be bound, I tell you cannot bide. Go therefore straight, provide your men, and like a manly knight, in place of stir, put forth thyself, essay with all thy might. To win the fame, for glory none in chambering doth rest. Mark what I say, to get thy men, I take it for the best.
Come on, Orestes, since thou hast obtained thy desire. Tut, man, seek to destroy as doth the flaming fire, whose property thou knowest doth grow as long as anything is left whereby the same may seem some succour for to bring.
I thank your grace. I shall sequest your gracious mind herein.
And go out Horestes.
See, I pray you, how he joys that he must war begin.
And go out Vice.
My counsel, now declare to me, how think you by this wight? Doth not he seem, in sooth, to be in time a manly knight? By all the gods, I think, in sooth, a man may easily know, whose son he was, so right he doth his father's steps follow.
Undoubtedly, my sovereign lord, he seemeth unto me not to sequest his father's steps in feats of chivalry, but rather for to imitate the flower of Grecian land. I mean Achilles, that same knight by whose one only band the Grecians have obtained at length the conquest of old Troy, for which they hold 10 years their space their labour great employ.
Sith he is gone for to purvey such things as shall indeed suffice to serve his turn in wars, whereof he shall have need. Let us depart, and when he shall return hither again, to see the muster of his men, we will sure take the pain.
And they go out, and that effectively ends that scene. Yeah, it's a really interesting sort of series of moments here. The king Idumeus comes in. Orestes sort of appeals to him. The vice says, "Don't tell him the truth about what you're planning to do, mate. He doesn't need to know. He doesn't need to know." And then they have a little interesting discussion. Yes, Counsel is possibly less an allegorical figure, just a generic counsel law. Now that actually we do it. Yeah, thoughts on this scene? Now that we've got to the end, Lois.
Yeah, I think some of the Vice's lines are just to the audience, aren't they? I mean, they're commentary on the action and suggesting that he knows more than the two of them do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's certainly the case with the bit immediately before Vice's exit, because when with the "Come on, Horestes," that must be an aside, because otherwise Horestes' line, which is obviously addressed to Idumeus, makes little sense.
Yeah, he's still whispering in, semi in his ear, isn't he? He's just going, "Come on, the good times are going to come. War. What is it good for? The continuation of plots." Yeah, they're getting all these this assistance. It's going to be interesting. Other thoughts, questions, queries, confusions? Helen, muted at the moment. Still muted at the moment.
Sorry, so unusual for me. To be muted, I mean. The Vice has some much shorter lines than the rest of the people, which, when he's not speaking to them, I think the "Tut, let him alone now, we may in good sooth," I think that speech, which does seem to have much shorter lines, is in fact also to the audience.
Yeah.
And I think that this indicates what Robert was saying at the beginning, that the Vice speaks for the company he's in. So when he's talking to them, he's using the 14ers. When he's talking to the audience, he's got a much more comfortable, chatty line length.
Yeah, it's almost like he actually just walks to the front of the stage, gets out a banana, sits down in a deck chair and goes, "Let him alone now. I'll just leave the scene."
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far, by the way. But yeah, there's that element. Lois, then Alan.
Yeah, there's really, the author has quite an interesting range of styles in this. I mean, there is that short line passage of the Vice, which seems to be closer to standard Vice talk. And then there's Idumeus' speech, which is really rather beautiful, I think, with its description of the classical underworld where Agamemnon is wandering. And, and then, of course, there's the rustic argument earlier on. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, it's constantly all these constant little gear changes. It's really interesting tonally what this play is trying to do. Alan.
Yeah, I think I would agree with what Helen said there about the shorter verse line are probably asides to the audience, and I wish that I'd spotted that when I was doing the work on it earlier in the year, because I was actually finding jumping between the short line and the long line quite tricky to negotiate. I'm much happier with the short line style. Long line, I just start running out of breath halfway through.
Eric.
I was going to say that it's interesting that the council compares him to Achilles, because it's like, yeah, no, not quite the role model you want to go for. I mean, sort of like young man dying in war kind of thing. But I guess it depends on your role, what you're aiming for.
Hey, what a way to go. If that's your bag, then maybe it is. Helen.
I mean, Orestes' problem is that he's got a binary choice. Both ways lead to him doing the wrong thing. You either revenge your father or you kill your mother. I mean, you either fail your father or you kill your mother. And he has no good choices.
Okay.
I think wailing is appropriate under those circumstances.
Yeah, not a happy bunny. Not a happy bunny. Eric.
I was going to say that it's interesting that there's no sort of virtue set up in contrast with the vice at the moment. But I mean, that as we've seen in morality plays, usually we have like, I don't know, reason versus, I don't know, sensibility or whatever it was, sensuality or something like that. Whereas here we just have the vice sort of doing its thing. I think.
Yeah, it's just this malicious element in the room, isn't it? It's it's maybe not changing what people are doing, but it's changing perhaps the motive, the sort of the purity of their motives, or making things slightly more malicious, or other things. I mean, it's an interesting question. Other thoughts before we move into the effectively what we'll call scene 3. No, okay. So this opens with a song, Haltersick entereth and singing this song to the tune of "Have Over the Water to Florid" or "Sellinger's Round." I mean, whichever one you want to go for. Obviously, popular tunes that we all know. Sadly, I don't think we actually do know. But you don't need to sing. But this is a song.
Farewell, adieu, that court-like life. To war we tend to go. It is good sport to see the strife of soldiers on a row. How merrily they forward march, these enemies to slay. With hey, trim, and tricksy toe, too, their banners they display. Now shall we have the golden cheats when others want the same. And soldiers have full many feats their enemies to tame. With cocking here and booming there, they break their foes' array. And lusty lads amid the fields their ensigns do display. The drum and flute play lustily, the trumpet blows amain, and venturous knights courageously do march before their train, with spear in rest so lively dressed, and in armor bright and gay, with hey, trim, and tricksy too, their banners they display.
And now Hempstring cometh in and speaketh.
Oh, gazones, Haltersick, what makes thou here?
What? Jack Hempstring, welcome, draw near.
By zoons, I have sought thee, some news thee to tell.
God's blood, what news? Is the devil in hell?
In faith thou art merry, but this is the matter. Dost thou hear, Haltersick? Each man doth clatter of wars, yea, of wars, for Horestes will go his heritage to win, boy. The truth is so.
Nay, but Jack Hempstring sees of this prate. If thou call me boy, then beware thy pate.
What? Hold thy peace. As far as I see, we be boys both. Therefore, let us agree.
Boy, nay, be God, though I be but small, yet Jack Hempstring, heart is worth all. And have I not a heart that to wars dare go? Yes, Hempstring, I warn thee, and thou shouldst know. If dig Haltersick's mind, thou move unto ear. Coals never burn till they be set on fire.
Yea, but if they burn so that they flame, yet water, Dick Haltersick, the burning can tame. But hark thee, my master will venture a joint, and me to wait on him he already doth point. But hearest thou knowest my master loves well now and then to be snapping at some dainty morsel. But by Gog's blood, Haltersick, if thou love me, take some pretty wench our laundrer to be. And by Gog's blood, I am content to bear half of her charges when that she comes there.
As fit for the war, Jack Hempstring, thou art, as in faith as a bee is to draw a cart. He is like to be manned that hath such a knight under his banner, I swear for to fight. When Horestes in fight most busiest shall be, then that with thy Ginny we must seek thee.
Oh, Gogzoon's heart and nails, you are a Franian. Come off with a mischief, my gentle companion. Sire Haltersick, I think that I be as good a soldier as ever was ye.
He hath learned his lesson, but of sooth I fear he hath quite forgotten the way for to swear. Wounds, heart, and nails. Marry, he's no lad, and he be not hanged, he will be stark mad.
Hang me no hanging. If ye be so quick, rub not too hard, lest Hempstring do kick.
Had better be still and asleep in his bed, if a kick me chance to break his head.
And Haltersick flouts him.
Gog's blood, good man Haltersick, begin you to flout me?
No, not at all. He doth but lout ye. What, what Hempstring, I say, are you angered at jest? In faith, good man Lobcock, you're handsomely dressed.
And flouts him on the lips.
Gog's blood, so to flout me, thou art much to blame.
Why, all that I do, man, is but in game.
Ha, take that for thy jest, and flout me no more.
Gives him a box on the ear.
For that same one blow, thou shalt have a score. Draw thy sword, villain, if thou
I apologise there. That should be Haltersick there. That's a returning thing. Apologies there. So box on the ear has been given by Hempstring. Haltersick returns with this line of dialogue.
For that same one blow thou shalt have a score. Draw thy sword, villain, if thou be a man, and then do the worst that ever thou can.
Nay, set sword aside, and at buffets we'll try, whether of us both shall have the mastery.
Gog's wounds, thou art bigger, yet I care not a point, if to be revenged I jobber a joint.
And they fight at buffets with fists.
I've coiled thee well, but I hold thee a groat. If thou meddle with me, I will swinge thy coat.
Indeed, I must say I've caught the worst, but I will be revenged, or else I shall burst. If time did not call me from hence to depart, I should anger thee, Hempstring, even at the heart. Therefore, farewell till another day. But hearest thou, take this to spend by the way.
And gives him a box on the ear, and out goes Haltersick.
Zoons, is he gone? Nay, after I will, and of the slave by his oons, I will have my fill.
And also goes out, and there effectively ends another scene. Yeah, that lots of lovely business. Flouting or flaunting, as it's actually spelt in the original. I particularly like the line, as fit for war, Jack Hempstring thou art in faith, as a bee to draw a cart. Second bee reference of the week. Always nice to have some bee references. Yeah, so we have this idea of these very young soldiers, you know, but they're not boys because their hearts are as men, type stuff, and they get into a little fight. And it's sort of reminding me a little bit of sort of the structure that we had the other day with Campaspe. We've got plot scenes, and then we have the sort of bits in between to break up the action that are not unconnected, but are doing something slightly different. I think the song at the beginning, the lyrics to that are wonderful. I mean, even though we don't have necessarily the music, I don't know, someone may have found the tune that fits it. It really does speak of a sort of marching tune, doesn't it? It has a lovely soldier's life quality to it. Eric?
I was just going to say that I was tempted to do it with the tune of Brave Sir Robin from Monty Python, but I figured it might be a bit too much. It was either that or, we're men in tights and that kind of thing. I don't know. It didn't have, it was too short, too long for that, though.
Lois?
I have a feeling that Sellinger's Round is available. I don't know. I mean, it's referred to so often. I think the tune must be in one of those collections.
Well, the only reason I say not is the edition that I'm looking at has got music inferred for other songs. So, but maybe it's something that happened since that edition came out. So that's one to research. That's definitely one to look into. If you know of anything on the internet, do put a comment in the in our underneath this video. That'd be lovely. Very helpful. We do look. Honest. We don't always reply, but we do look. Other thoughts about this interesting little comic interlude? I'm just wondering, is it the same? I mean, it feels like it could double very nicely as the two rustics from earlier, just with different hats on. But that doesn't mean it needs to.
The first two were much older, I think. Not necessarily. I mean, Hodge was older. I'm not sure about Rusticus. But yes, I mean, if they can play boys and old men, then sure. There's no reason at all why they shouldn't be the same couple.
Eric?
There's a lot of H business going on, like Haltersick, Hempstring, Hodge, Horestes. It's a lot of, yeah. I don't know if that's significant at all, but yeah.
I suspect in this scene, yes, it is significant. Whether it's significant with the other H's is perhaps another thing. Lynn, then Lois?
Another thing that's confusing me. So, okay, I can kind of buy that these guys are soldiers from the rival armies. Orestes is raising an army to fight an army that's on the side of his mother's lover, Egistus. Okay, I guess that's going on. But it's very odd to me that they are named Haltersick and Hempstring, which are both references to hanging, which is an ignominious death. So, more weirdness.
Lois?
Yeah, I think this is kind of like the sort of things they tend to call boys in these plays. What is it, crack rope? Isn't that one of the commonest ones, which again implies that they're going to be hanged and break the rope? And it may just mean these are rascally little boys who do the sort of things that adults will keep telling them will get them hanged one of these days.
And, it's not an uncommon end for soldiers. Soldier discipline is do anything outside of what your commanders say. Hanging's not necessarily an unlikely end to you from your own side, let alone the enemy.
Yes, that's true. Hanging for war crimes is something we have seen in later but early modern texts. Yes.
Yeah.
Other thoughts about this little scenette before we move forward? Alan?
Yeah, I basically see these as young conscripts, possibly to Horestes' army. Either young conscripts or volunteers, as happened in beginning of First World War.
As far as I can make out, one of them is assuming that his master is going to go to war. I'm not quite clear about who his master is, and I'm not quite what the setup is with the other one. He tells the other one to go get them a woman who's going to be a laundress, and presumably the camp prostitute as well. I mean, that's not absolutely clear at this point. I think this thing could easily, it really reads as if it had been written by a pacifist. I mean, it's such a depiction of everybody delighted about going to war, and what a mess it's creating.
Yes, and it's the other point that we may come to is the question of will we see any of these characters ever again? And there may or may not be a selection of characters who just pop in for a vignette and then disappear. And that's sort of why I quite like the idea that the vignettes are all played by the same people, just in different costumes, because it's it becomes a sort of rolling series of scenes in that way. Alan?
I mean, it's almost feeling, I know we've only done 3 scenes, but it almost looks like odd-numbered scenes are London-based, you know, with stuff that's going to appeal to the groundlings, if that's the right description at the time that we're talking about.
Not really.
Whereas the even-numbered scenes are the classical stuff.
Yes and no. I think you're right in the sense that, you know, we've got plot scenes and we've got peripheral scenes. I think that's that, you know, stuff that may refer to the plot rather than being directly connected to it. There may be all sorts of different references and sort of idioms that fly in and out that we may or may not be able to detect anything from. Any more? We're about a quarter of the way into the text. So, you know, rattling along. It's not a long play. We're going to get through, you know, about half of it today. Oh, Eric.
I forgot to say that earlier that it's some sentences run on, like, as in, you know, they run on to the next line, but it doesn't feel natural to sort of, because of the rhyme, it doesn't feel natural to keep going. I tried it with once or twice, and then it does not work. It just, like, it resists sort of keep going until you're speeding to the end of the line, but you're not, like, sort of trying to get to the completion of a sentence.
There's a lot in at play in terms of making this function and how it functions. You know, I don't think it's ever going to be anything other than a little artificial. But I think there would be a compromise in terms of actually making the clarity of the meaning as well as obeying the structure, as it were. There are ways that maybe we should workshop in the future. I've been meaning actually to say, not all the text is written that way, of actually really doing some work on 14ers because it's a verse form that, you know, we as actors don't really get trained in, and it would be quite nice to actually sort of come up with some, if not rules, but, you know, some methods to really dig into it as a verse form, because, you know, we have covered quite a bit of it now, and I feel like we need some practice in some sort of formal way. Alan?
I must admit, going the other direction, I think that last sequence that we've just done, which are written as pairs of lines, I think they're actually a quatrain in each case, because they actually make more sense to me if you split each of those lines in two.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Yeah, it's I don't think it's as exactly tidy as that. I think it does dance around a bit in terms of what it's doing. I think this is a text that might want to trip you up unless we've spent more time rehearsing it, which obviously we haven't. We're just throwing ourselves at it like fools, throwing ourselves over the top. So let's do that again. Let's go into the next scene, labeled here as scene 4. And we have more wonderful stage directions. All these stage directions are, with a few minor additions, all original. So let the drum play, and Horestes enter with his men, and then let him kneel down. He does a lot of kneeling. Make sure you've got shin pads on there, you know, knee pads, etc. And speaks.
O gods, be prosperous, I pray, and eke preserve my band. Show now that ye be gods indeed. Stretch out your mighty hand, and give us hearts and wills also, whereby we may prevail. And suffer not, you gods, I pray, our courages to fail. But let our hearts addicted be for aye, as we pretend. And of that vile adulterous dame, O gods, now make an end. My hands do thirst her blood to have, my mind thou performed, O gods, your just judgment.
Enter nature and stand up, Horestes.
Nay, stay, my child, from mother's blood, withdraw thy bloody hand.
No, not at all, O nature, can my purpose now withstand. Death, my heart cannot agree. My father slain in such a sort and unrevenged to be?
Consider first, Horestes mine, what pain for thee she took.
And of my father's death again, nature, do thou look.
I do confess a wicked fact it was. This is most plain. Notwithstanding from mother's blood thou must thy hands refrain. Canst thou, alack, unhappy wight, consent revenge to be on her whose paps before this time hath given food to thee, in whom I nature formed thee, as best I thought it good. O now requite her for her plains, withdraw thy hands from blood.
Who offendeth the love of God and eke man's love with willing heart, must by that love have punishment, as duty due for his desert. For me, therefore, to punish her, as law of gods and man doth will, is not a crime, though that I do, as thou dost say, my mother kill.
The cruel beasts that range in fields, whose jaws to blood are wet, do not consent their mother's paunch in cruel wise to eat. The tiger fierce doth not desire the ruin of his kind, and shall Dame Nature now in thee such tyranny once find, as not the cruel beasts vouchsafe to do in any case. Leave now, I say, Horestes mine, and to my words give place, lest that of man this fact of thine may judged for to be, nay law in sooth, nay justice eke, but cruel tyranny.
Pythagoras does think it low no tyranny to be, when that justice is ministered as the law and God's decree. If that the law doth her condemn as worthy death to have, O nature, wouldst thou will that I her life should seem to have, to save her life, whom law doth slay, is not justice to do. Therefore I say, I will not yield their hests to come unto.
If nature cannot bridle thee, remember the decay of those which hitherto, in sooth, their parents sought to slay. Oedipus' fate call thou to mind, that slew his father so, and eke remember now what fame of him abroad doth go.
What fame doth blow I foresee not I, yet what fame doth blow I foresee not I, nay yet what fame I have, for this is true that blood for blood my father's death doth crave. And law of gods and law of man doth eke request the same. Therefore, O nature, cease to pray, I force not of my name.
For to lament this heavy fate, I cannot other do. Alack, alack, that once my child should now consent unto his mother's death. Wherefore, farewell. I can no longer stay.
And nature goes out.
Farewell, Dame Nature, to my men straight I will go, I will take my way.
And Orestes goes out as well, and again ends that unit of action. Don't do it! Yeah, we get a much more heartfelt, much more, the other side of the fence here of don't do it. Vice is going, do it, do it, do it. And here we get nature coming in. Dame Nature. We get, this is a proper allegorical figure popping in. This is what, this is her whose paps before this time have given food to thee. How could you contemplate such an act? It's quite, it's again through the it's quite affecting, some of this actually. It has a nice
and then when she loses on that score, she says, yeah, well, think Oedipus.
What's the matter if he's a good boy and loves his mother?
Well, it isn't that. He killed his father.
I know.
It's the death of his father, whose name I have currently forgotten. Began with an L.
Laius.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Lois, then Lynn.
Yeah, it's one of the few bits that actually works allegorically. I mean, he abandons nature, or, nature abandons him, which is, an accurate statement as well as an allegorical statement.
Lynn.
Yeah, I think the conflict between law and nature is really interesting. Little philosophical debate here. Which law should a person follow, the law of nature or the laws of gods and men? And it's interesting that those two are put in tension or in conflict. You wouldn't think that would happen, but in this case, in these extreme cases, nature compels you to one thing and law and justice another. So that's really interesting little philosophical debate. Although I do think nature's think of Oedipus is not a particularly good comparison. Oedipus slew his father unwillingly and unwittingly, and then so there's that, and it was his father, not his mother, so it wasn't intentional, and it was a different parent, so it's not really that good an analogy.
It was the best she could come up with on the spur of the moment.
Yeah, I mean, reacting to that blow of, here's Pythagoras. No one expects Pythagoras, coming out of you at that point. So yeah, it's a really we're getting these scenes. They're quite intense, actually. They're quite focused. Even when the comedy scenes are quite focused, they're not overlong. None of these things are going on for more than 100 lines or anything particularly like that. So it's these little vignettes that just keep coming at us quite quickly, and that's interesting as well. Eric.
It's kind of like the History of Violence, the film, where they kind of, they set it up so you kind of, the violence is inevitable, but it's sort of hard to, it just kind of, it's not the thing you want to be doing.
Yeah. Bad things are coming. Or are they? We shall see. Let's go into the next scene. We have a return of other characters we've met before, which is always nice. We get the re-entrance of Idumeus and Counsel again. Who's Idumeus?
I think monster here means something like muster of troops.
That's right. It's a muster.
Yes, yeah. Muster. It is indeed. Yes.
Excellent. It was worrying me.
I was just glancing at it, and it just can't be a monster, so it must be a muster.
To this monster, let us go. That would be a different play.
I was thinking, what, monster?
Okay, so muster. So enter Idumeus and Counsel.
Muster, let us go, for I suppose it time. Where is Horestes? Why stays he? The truth to me define.
And let the drum play.
O sovereign lord, methinks I hear him for to be at hand. If it please your grace, he's in sight even now with all his band.
Let the drum play and enter Horestes with his band. They march about the stage.
Horestes, we have stayed, your muster for to see.
And now at hand my men and I already armed be. Lo, mighty king, these champions here agree with me to wend. O gracious king, that they shall so, wilt please you condescend.
I do agree, and now awhile give ear your king unto. It doth behoove courageous knights on this wise for to do. That is to strive for to obtain the victory and praise that lasts for aye, when death shall end the fine of these our days. Wherefore be bold and fear no fate, the gods for you shall fight, for they be just and will not see that you in case of right shall be distressed. Wherefore attend and do your busy pain, the crabbed rage of enemies by force for to restrain. And as to me your trustiness hath heretofore been known, so now to this Horestes, born let eke the same be shown. Be to his hests obedient, be stout to take in hand such enterprise, which he shall think most for his state to stand. which if you do, the fame is yours, the glory and renown, that shall arise of this your facts, throughout the world shall sound. The which you may, I pray the gods, your guides herein to be. And now farewell, but note that well, that I have said to ye.
The gods preserve your grace for aye, and you defend from woe. But we have done as you command, full well your grace shall know.
Now hark, Horestes, sith thou must of men the guider be, and that the will of gods it is, thou must now part from me. Take yet my last commandment, and bear it in my mind. Let now thy men courageousness in thee their captain find. And as thou art courageous, so likewise let them be. For safeguard of thy men a brain, well fraught with policy. For overrash in doing aught doth often damage bring. Therefore take counsel first, before thou dost anything. For counsel, as Plato doth tell, is sure a heavenly thing. And Socrates a certainty doth say, counsel doth bring. Of things in doubt, for Livy says, no man shall him repent. That hath, before he worked aught, his time in counsel spent. And be thou liberal to thy men, and gentle be also. For that way at thy will thou mayst have them through fire to go. And he that shall at any time deserve aught well of thee, suffer him not for to depart, till well reward he be. Thus have you heard, Horestes mine, remember well the same. In doing thus you shall purchase to the immortal fame, the which I hope you will essay, for to achieve indeed the gods the bliss, when in the war thou forward shalt proceed.
I thank your grace, and now of you my leave I here do take.
And possibly misplaced, Idumeus embraces him.
Farewell, my son Horestes, I thy parting ill shall take. Yet ere I go, let me embrace thee once, I thee do pray. Alack, alack, that now from me thou must needs part away. Yet while thou art in present place, receive of me this kiss.
And kiss him.
Farewell, good night, for now I shall thy sweet embracings miss.
The sacred gods preserve and save thy state, O king, I pray, and send thee health, and after death to reign with him for aye. Come on, my men, let us depart.
As please your grace with all our heart.
Says all of the soldiers simultaneously, and they march about and go out.
Ah, how grievous is his parting now! My counsel unto me, the gods him bless and send him health, I pray them heartily. Woe worth the time, the day and hour, now may Horestes well, and Clytemnestra may lament that so she did assail his father dear. For now on blood Horestes' mind is set, and to revenge his father's death, sure, naught there is can let. In voiding of a mischief small, they have wrought their decay, for now naught else in Horestes, but for revenge bears sway.
For two causes, my sovereign lord, the revengement ought to be. The one, lest others be infect with that they shall see their princes do. The other is that those that now be ill may be revoked and may be taught for to subdue their will. Plato, a wise philosopher, did think it for to be a princely fact when as king shall punish seriously such persons as did train their life to follow that was naught, the which their prince at any time shall by mischance have wrought. Prodigious and evil king, a carrion likeness to, which all the place about the same distinct causeth to do. Therefore, king, if that her fault should unrevenged be, 1,000 evils would ensue thereof your grace should see. Her fault is great, and punishment it is worthy for to have. For by that mean the good in sooth from dangers may be safe. For lo, the universal school of all the world we know is once the palace of a king, where vice's chief do flow. And as the waters from one head and fountain oft do spring, so vice and virtue oft do flow from the palace of a king, whereby the people, seeing that the king addict to be, to prosecute the like, they all do labor, as we see. Therefore the gods have willed thus Horestes for to take his journey and a recompense for father's death to make.
If gods have willed the same to be, good luck the gods him send. Come on, my counsel, now from hence we purpose for to wend.
Really interesting little scene, because we've got sort of action. I mean, Helen's there being all the soldiers, but we've got this mustering of men. Perhaps it's the mustering of the comedy characters we met earlier. And yet there's so much prep for this revenge mission. You know, I have to say my impression of Horestes' story from Greek tragedy is, you know, this lone assassin comes sneaking in and does the deed. I don't recall a military offensive in that at all. So I'm finding this fascinating. There's so much prep. There's so much discussion. You know, they're sad to see him go. And then it's this little moment of, you know, did we do the right thing from Idumeus? And that very last, the council's last speech, it just feels like he's just turned to the Attorney General and said, right, is it legal what we've just done? Was it legal to go to war? Yes, here are all the precedents, my lord. And it's interesting that comes afterwards as well, though that might be to do with costume changes and breaking up things. But yeah, it's really interesting. This isn't an assassination. This is a war, and yeah, it's fascinating. Thoughts from the room on that scene, Lynn?
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing. That in my version of this is an English translation of the Greek tragedy, and it's a solo act, and I was wondering if there are sources where the confrontation between Horestes and on the one side and Clytemnestra and Egistus on the other is larger scale. Is there a version of this story where that this is taken from, or is this the author's idea? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I think that's one that we'll be able to dig in to later. I'm assuming that it's from a source and it's not completely out of the blue, but I genuinely don't know off the top of my head. I haven't had a chance to look into that. Eric?
Well, I do remember that there is something, I can't remember which myth or like which strand or whatever, that like after he's killed his mother, he kind of has to deal with Egistus and the army of, like, that, they're the guards, basically, not necessarily, sort of an army, but that's about it. I don't like, he has to kill everybody basically. And also Electra isn't here, which is quite interesting. Like, sort of, Electra, his sister, isn't around, which is kind of interesting as well.
I think they're keeping it quite martial and male for the most part here, aren't they? I mean, we're going to meet Clytemnestra in just a moment. But certainly in terms of the language used about her, but it's feeling very martial, all of this. That's the theme. So maybe that's why they're keeping that out. Helen?
Can I introduce the time machine?
Please do.
Idumeus and later the counselor introduces characters who kind of post-date the action of the play.
By a lot.
A lot in some cases. Centuries.
Very wise counselor.
I don't think necessarily that the audience would have thought fast enough, but when we're looking at it word by word, it does rather leap out and hit you. Plato, Socrates, and above all, Livy. I mean, Livy's way. Idumeus would never have heard of Livy. I think we can say that. He would not have even have the concept of Livy.
Not even a twinkle in anyone's eye.
Yes, I mean, he might be able to imagine that there was such a man as Socrates or Plato, but Livy, no.
Other thoughts? Eric?
Well, I guess it's like, with the play we did, at the beginning of the week, where, we had all the philosophers who didn't necessarily overlap, but some of them did. So there were enough of them to sort of go, yeah, this is fine, historically. Although, obviously, historically, none of them really stand up to anything, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as, connecting with that whole medieval tradition of everything happens at the same time, so it's fine. There's where you've got medieval plays where people are swearing by the wounds of someone who won't be born for thousands of years, and or for that matter himself, the events that haven't happened yet, and it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's just a conceit. It's okay. Other thoughts about that scene? I'm really interested about the sort of modes of performance. We keep getting these little hints that actually this is quite demonstrative. This is quite bold in places, but then also there's moments where it feels very, very small. So I'm really interested about how it flicks around. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking of it as a touring production because of the emphasis on the smallness of the cast on the title page. But in fact, it's quite a large cast if you also have a lot of other people there mustering and doing probably quite elaborate military maneuvers. This would be quite a good thing for a school play. In fact, I mean, the kids would look really cute in their uniforms or whatever they're wearing, their armor, and marching about the stage. And they do it twice, don't they? I mean, it's obviously, a big hit.
Yeah, and that would and again that creates an interesting question about tone again, about that is a distancing device of slightly changing how you receive a play, and the impact that it has, and going from practical action to debating about the nature of that action, and this play is doing an awful lot of different things. Let us go to the final scene of the session. So it's a song again we have here with Egistus and Clytemnestra singing to each other for quite a long time. So it's a little duet. And again, maybe it's an older male voice with a boy soprano here or something along those. I don't know how this would work. In the edition I'm looking at, they have found a plausible song. I don't think it's necessarily the music. We have this stage direction, enter Egistus and Clytemnestra singing this song to the tune of King Solomon. And I back of my mind, I can think we've had King Solomon as a tune before somewhere, and maybe there's something about. So anyway, Egistus and Clytemnestra, please.
And was it not a worthy sight, a Venus child, King Priam's son, to steal from Greece a lady bright, for whom the wars of Troy begun, naught fearing danger that might fall? Lady, lady, from Greece to Troy he went withal, my dear lady.
When Paris first arrived there, whereas Dame Venus' worship is, and blustering fame abroad did bear his lively fame, he did not miss to Helena for to repair, her for to tell of praise and shape so trim and fair that did excel.
Her beauty caused Paris pain, and bare chief sway within his mind. No thing was able to restrain his will, some way forth to find, whereby he might have his desire. Lady, lady, so great in him was Cupid's fire, my dear lady.
And eke as Paris did desire fair Helena for to possess, her heart inflamed with like fire of Paris' love desired no less, and found occasion him to meet in Citharon, where each of them the other did greet the feast upon.
If that in Paris Cupid's shaft, O Clytemnestra, take such place, that time ne way he never left, till he had got her comely grace. I think my chance not ill to be, lady, lady, that ventured life to purchase ye, my dear lady.
King Priam's son loved not so sore the Grecian dame, thy brother's wife, but she his person esteemed more, not for his sake saving her life, which caused her people to be slain, with him to fly, and he requite her love again most faithfully.
And as he recompense again the fair Queen Helen for the same, so while I live, I will take pain, my will always to yours to frame, sith that you have vouchsafed to be, lady, lady, a queen and lady unto me, my dear lady.
And as she loved him best while life did last, so tend I you to do, if that devoid of war and strife the gods shall please to grant us to. Sith you vouchsafest me to take, oh, my good knight, and me thy lady for to make my heart's delight.
As joyful as the warlike god is, Venus to behold, so is my heart replete with joy, much more 1,000-fold. Lady dear, in that I do possess my heart's delight. What means this sound? For very much it doth my heart affright.
Oh, fear not at all, Egistus mine, no hurt it doth pretend. Oh, but lo, methinks a messenger to us hither doth wend.
Indeed, enter a messenger.
The gods preserve your equal state and send you of their bliss.
Welcome, good messenger. What news, I pray thee, with thee is?
If it please your grace, even now there is arrived in this land the mighty knight Horestes with a mighty puissant band, who purposeth for to invade this Mycene city strong. And as he goes, he lays both tower and castle all along. It boots no man if defense to make, for if he will not yield, by soldiers' rage he straight is slain in midst of the field.
And the messenger goes straight out.
Ah, sir, is he come indeed? He is welcome by this day. Egistus, now in sooth with speed from hence take you your way into our realm, and take up men our title to defend. Till your return this city I to keep do sure intend. For all his strength he shall not get to enter once herein. The walls be strong, and for his force I sure set not a pin.
Sith you be able to defend this city as you say, farewell. In sooth, to get me men now will I take my way, and soon again I will return his pampered pride to tame.
Farewell, Egistus, and in sooth I straight will do the same.
And they go out, and thus ends another unit of action. Yeah, most of that is the song, this little love duet. How even is this? Like, I have to say, Egistus seems to spend a lot more time going, "Dear lady," and is it my imagination, or does he seem slightly more smitten with her than the other way around, or am I just being unfair?
No, I think you're fair.
Because he does seem to be more doty, whereas she's just a little bit. You know, you're a good knight. And she does say my heart's delight. So to be fair, I might be unreasonable there. Alan.
Also, an interesting difference in form in that each of Egistus's verses end with a chorus, which is pretty well the same each time, whereas Clytemnestra's doesn't.
Yes. The wording it seems to be variant each time, doesn't it? Whereas yours is just sort of the middle line of yours is different each time.
Yeah, it's lady, lady, blah, 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 my dear lady.
Yeah.
Whereas Clytemnestra's does change every damn time.
Though presumably all fitting the same tune. But I don't know, maybe there's a slight variation as it goes along. I doubt it, but who knows? Helen.
She certainly gives the orders. She sets the priorities. She gives the orders. She decides what is people are to be worried about and what is perfectly normal behavior. And it's her kingdom.
Yeah, Egistus is what means this sound very much doth my heart affright. He's not a very martial one, whereas Clytemnestra is, oh, fear not. It's you know, there's a messenger who will tell us what's going on. Messenger says, right, there's an invading army. And he goes, well, really? Well, welcome. Yeah, we're sorted. We've got walls. We've got men. It'll be fine. Strong walls.
There's absolutely no mention of Iphigenia. And Clytemnestra does not seem to be aware of the fact that Orestes is her son.
The mighty knight Horestes, yeah, or doesn't bring it up.
Yeah.
I mean, or possibly it goes without saying, but nevertheless.
Yeah. Well, she says, "Is he come?" which could mean almost anything. You know, oh yes, I've been expecting this, or you know, ever since he left, vowing revenge, I thought he might come back. I mean, who knows?
He was a difficult baby.
Yeah.
The boy's got issues.
Yeah.
Never played well with others.
I think Electra sent him away at the time of his father's death, didn't she? So that he would be safe. I can't remember the whole thing.
Yeah. Is that libation bearers?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it the first one? I can't never remember, yeah.
Well, I'd say in the sense of what this play is doing is quite different, and it seems to be sketching in elements that it feels important and ignoring others, and how those threads all fit together. I mean, it's quite bold colours here. It feels to me that, you know, she's very controlled, knows exactly what's going on, whereas her lover is much less martial and much less composed in that sense. Eric.
Well, also all the references they make, the mythological references, are to cheating couples, like, you know, the warlike god and Venus were trapped in a net, according to, you know, historically. Mythology, not history. Sorry, it's hard to keep them straight. And you know, then you've got Paris and Helen and all that stuff.
Yeah. So it's Any other thoughts on Clytemnestra and Beau at this stage? Because we are now at the end of our session today. We're halfway through the play. It's not a long play. We're stretching it a bit to fit it over 2 sessions to a degree. It'd just be a bit tight to do it in one. So yeah, we're halfway through. We have these relatively short scenes. We've got music. We've got comedy, we've got debate, we've got all sorts of things are in play here, and it's doing all sorts of different things. And it's still a sense of trying to figure out, you know, because we don't quite know where it's going because the myths are there, but what precisely is this going to be doing? So final thoughts from the room. I'll go around in just a moment. I'm just waffling on to give you a moment to compose your thoughts. As ever, it's that question of what we could do with this today. It's always harder with anything that is of that morality or interlude tradition where, in a sense, the ongoing tradition of these plays doesn't exist anymore. So, you know, we're able to say in this room, yes, here's this trope that a Vice does. Here's this thing that we expect from a play like this, which a modern audience won't have. So as ever, I'm sort of thinking that this is a thing that fits within a season of works that sort of talk to each other rather than something in isolation. Getting a handle on it and thoughts about what we do with it in the future. Alan, final thoughts?
Yeah, it's an interesting piece. One of the things that's got me slightly confused is the title by which it sort of generally knows the play of the Vice, because effectively we're now almost exactly halfway through the piece and the Vice has disappeared off stage roughly at the end of the first quarter, and is obviously having an extended half-time interval. You know, and this second quarter, as it were, is very much more the Horestes plot.
I can assure you the Vice will return. No spoilers there, but yes, it's very Vice heavy at the beginning, and then the Vice tends to disappear. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't market it as play of Vice because what Tudor interlude isn't. In that sense, but yes, you're right. Its title is probably more rightly Horestes. Any other thoughts, Alan? Sorry, I jumped over you.
No, I mean, I think it's an interesting one, and how far you could actually do any of these plays based on the classical Greek myth these days and expect to get an audience, a general audience, to be entertained by them. You could have an audience among people who've done a classical education, but that's a diminishing number.
Well, it's an interesting question on that front, because again, we've already actually found that, if anything, having a little bit of classical learning is possibly a disadvantage for this, because they're sort of expecting it to do different things. I mean, I think that's to a degree a marketing issue that I'm not worrying too much about. I mean, it's so unexpected or different from, you know, even other sort of revenge plays that we get later on, is that it's doing something quite different. It's really mixing much more comedy and different tones to it. It's a really interesting question about where you place this in a marketing front. How do you sell a play like this? Which I don't think we need to worry about at this forum too much. Elizabeth, final thoughts?
Hey, Rob. Yeah, I completely agree with Alan. I think that it's interesting how some of the characters just disappear from the text for a scene. I think that it has very clear doubling in this text. I think that those characters are on stage as someone else whenever we don't see them. So I think Vice may be someone else in the narrative. It really reminded me of the Aeneid from my GCSE Latin lessons, and Ulysses or Odysseus. And you were asking, how does it play for a modern audience? I think it's quite challenging to present this narrative to someone who isn't versed in classical texts. I think.
Did we just lose you just there?
No, that's what I had to say.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. So so that question today, how do we approach the classics for a modern audience? Eric, final thoughts from you. Eric, reasonably well stooped in the classics.
Well, I'm a bit crazy about Greek mythology, just a little bit. I mean, my microphone is resting on Sappho, so you know. I don't know what that says about me. Anyway, I think it's quite an interesting play, like as you said, because it doesn't follow all the tropes of the Vice influencing the character. I mean, like, because Orestes has already decided he's going to do this. He doesn't need a final push. He just kind of goes, yeah, okay, thanks for like the support. I will do this. But they also have the comedy bits, which is kind of seems to me a bit like we need a costume change here, and or like a set change. I don't know, maybe something like that. But I don't know. It seems like I think it would be fun to do on stage, just the whole comic business as well. Or you could have those sketches to you could use those comedy sketches like in parallel, sort of, or just isolated as well. To do, you know, just for fun, just whacking people over the head. I don't know. It's interesting, as we said, with the whole tradition of morality plays that we've looked at.
Yeah, I think if we ever get around to doing an evening focused on early modern armies, we've got a couple of good bits of material we could lift from here pretty much wholesale. Lois, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think this thing was definitely meant to be performed by children. And if we're going to do it without children, I think I'm thinking of the title of a play that was a big hit, I think in the 70s, the assassination of Marat, as performed by inhabitants of the asylum in Charenton. if we marketed this as the story of Orestes as performed by schoolboys in the mid-16th century, and emphasize the sort of review quality of it, that the scenes are all kind of different from each other, I think this might work quite well.
Yes, there's a whole series of questions about the original performance context, of which there are no definite answers to, and which I'll throw in at the end of tomorrow's session, because I don't think they're very helpful at this stage. But there are all sorts of interesting possibilities that actually arise out of what this text is doing. I say very few of which are provable, but which are interesting. And certainly in performance, hey, accurate history is less of an issue. Because we're drama, it's like The Crown. It doesn't have to be real. So, Lynn, final thoughts?
Yeah, when we first started, the idea of a morality play, Greek tragedy mashup just seemed very weird to me, but I got used to it surprisingly quickly. It's like, oh, well, this is what this play is doing. And I sort of love Lois's idea of kind of framing it as here we're kind of reproducing an early modern theater troupe doing this play. I think that might kind of give the audience a way in where it wouldn't seem so dissonant. But it's surprising me a little bit how the mashup of the two genres isn't bothering me anymore. Like, all right, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, it's the idea of the event, and the advantage of the play text itself isn't too long. So if you wanted to do that kind of thing, the framing device can actually be quite extensive, because there's only so much actual time of an event that the actual play itself would fill. There's fun thoughts there. Helen, final thoughts from you?
Yes, I think that Hollywood has given us some help with the ancient Greek myths, because there have been a number of films. The most recent one, which I suppose isn't really recent, seemed to feature Brad Pitt's buttocks rather a lot.
Troy is retreating disturbingly far into the past, actually, now.
Yes, it is, isn't it? It's the last 10 years have just been a blur, say nothing of the last 20. I think I mean, the way I saw this was when the army came on, it was composed of Vice as the sergeant. The four comic characters already met as soldiers in ill-assorted knitted chain mail. And nature as their mother, weeping and waving her handkerchief at them as they marched off. I mean, but would that be too much of a send-up, perhaps, of what is supposed to be a serious army on a serious quest?
Yeah, it is that question of tone, because it does switch from very serious discussion or very serious emotional moments. And it's one of those problems with big emotional moments with a character who literally you only have 100 lines for, 50 lines for, they're on stage, they're emoting at you. It's a very serious thing, but that's all we see of them. And it's a very condensed thing next to a scene that's funny, next to a scene that's doing something else. And where the play keeps throwing us is a really interesting sort of question of how to negotiate. We've done final thoughts from everyone. Does anyone have anything else they want to throw in? As it's been a relatively short session. No, we're all awaiting eagerly what's going to be happening in the.
Eric has something to say.
Oh, does Eric have something to say? Sorry, I missed him.
It's okay. I was being a bit shy about it because I'm like, yeah, final thoughts, and then like, oh yeah, wait, no, I have. No, it's just about the rhyme. Because like the rhyme sets the pace. It just makes it go even faster than it would, I guess. As you said, it's a very short play. It gets even shorter because of the rhyme. We really need to actually start doing some technical verse work at some point. That's a thing to note down for the future. Oh fun. Okay.
I was thinking similar, but not quite the same word ending.
Yeah. we will be returning to this, the play of Vice, in the next session. So we will be returning to this. We will be concluding the play and finding out where it goes and whether there's other interesting structural party quirks to it, or whether it does something slightly different. We shall see. Thanks very much to all the readers for all their work today, and farewell.
Farewell. Vale.